Good evening, everyone. This is Karen Francis with UA, the Liberty TV Live. I'm here this evening with UIC President Mr. Joseph Patterson.
Good evening.
Also, will be joining us in this evening, we're hoping, is Chase Neal. And Chase was recently one of the nominees for St. Anne's by-election coming up in September 30th. We wanted to host this live this evening, not just to introduce our candidate, but for us to get a little education as to what exactly is going on. What does this all mean for us as Jamaicans, and for those people in the St. Anne area, what does this mean for them? So I wanted to ask Mr. Patterson if he would give us a little bit of a background as to what is going on and how this affects the UIC, how it affects Chase, and what the people of St. Anne. But after you've introduced yourself, we also have a little clip that will give people our viewers some background as to what this whole by-election is all about. So, Mr. Patterson, tell us a little bit about what this means for Chase and the UIC.
Sure. Well, as you know, UIC is Jamaica's third official registered political party, which means, as a party, as a movement, your goal is to capture the attention of the Jamaican people and to convince the Jamaican people to vote for us so that we can bring the change that we want to bring to Jamaica. A by-election is a unique kind of election because it's not a general election. It's because you have a vacancy in between elections. And right now we have two constituency vacancies and two municipal vacancies. South Trelawney is vacant for about a year now, and Northeast St. Anne has been vacant for a few days. Incidentally, the Prime Minister chose to call a by-election for the Northeast St. Anne seat with the following day after the resignation of their candidate, their existing MP from the seat, which is quite unusual for an election to be called right after the very next day, while you have the South Trelawney seat sitting there for over a year now without a representative. But what does this mean for the UIC? Well, a few things. One, the PNP is not contesting the Northeast St. Anne seat. So that leaves a big gap because the people are used to seeing, two parties, the JLP and the PNP. Okay. And they have been brainwashed into not considering third parties or alternatives. For good reason. I mean, we have to understand that the people have been, managed and trained to think a particular way.
Yes.
And parties like ours, third parties, tend to not have the financial resources to be very visible, to be as visible as the others. So, for example, right now, if you were to go to Northeast St. Anne, you'll see a flurry of activities by the JLP in the constituency because they have a ton of money that they get from the PSOJ oligarchs, right? So they're able to spend millions on buses, on food, on T-shirts, on caps, on posters, all the stuff that people are used to seeing in an election. Unfortunately, we have not been trained to think about elections properly, to analyze manifestos, to look at past performances and so on. If any Jamaican were to look at the past performance of the two existing traditional parties, you'd never want to vote for them again. But unfortunately, that's not the basis on which people go to the polls. So the UIC has to use this opportunity right now to break through the mindset of the people and reach them in the constituency and also across Jamaica, because the fact that we're now involved in this this by-election means many Jamaicans will hear the word UIC, because the traditional media is being forced now to at least say UIC. Normally they don't. They try their very best to avoid mentioning the UIC or saying anything. So this by-election, with us participating, gets the name out there some more. For example, this evening we heard Mr. Neal on on the live, on the nationwide news. And so he was on live, engaging in a discussion with the host of that program, or the two hosts. And there's also the other independent candidate as well who was on there. So this, to your question, Ms. Francis, this is a very, very important event for the UIC, only because we do not get a lot of visibility normally in mainstream media.
So let's take people back a little bit to take us to where we are now in terms of this this by-election. So we're going to play a little clip so we can get a little backstory.
Welcome back to Primetime News.
Special welcome to viewers on onespotmedia.com as well as TVJ International in the Cayman Islands.
Up first this evening, the people of Northeast St. Anne will go to the polls in a by-election on September 30.
The by-election comes almost a year before a general election is constitutionally due and could be the first of several in coming months.
Now, the announcement was made by Prime Minister Andrew Holness at Jamaica House Wednesday morning, hours after first-time MP Marsha Smith resigned from the seat.
As Kalisha Williams reports, Matthew Samuda will now be the running on the JLP's ticket in the constituency.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness made a surprise appearance at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House. First, the precursor, which signaled that a big announcement was coming.
You would have been informed of Minister Clark's promotion to serve internationally in the IMF. Yesterday, we announced the resignation of Marsha Smith as Member of Parliament for Northeast St. Anne. Minister Matthew Samuda will replace Marsha in Northeast St. Anne as the party's candidate. And on Monday last, he tendered his resignation from the Senate and as a minister to make himself available.
Against that background, Mr. Holness said major changes are coming for the government and it will begin in northeastern St. Anne.
Today, I am announcing that a by-election will be held in the constituency of Northeast St. Anne. The nomination day will be September 11th, 2024, and the election day will be September 30th, 2024.
Matthew Samuda has been working in the constituency for some time, following mounting criticisms and protests by residents in the constituency for Marsha Smith to step aside. As the people prepare to go to the polls to vote for a new representative, Mr. Holness indicated that he's working on a new appointment for Smith, who he says has excellent skills in industrial relations. However, journalists were more concerned about Mr. Holness's decision to have a by-election in St. Anne so soon, when the Southern Trelawney seat has been vacant for almost a year now after MP Marissa Dalrymple Philibert resigned in September 2023.
Northeast St. Anne is not singled out. As I have said, we are at a stage where we are now ready to do all the by-elections, and all of them will be done. It is just that this one is going to be done first, but all the by-elections will be done.
Can you give us a time frame as to when that will happen?
As they come due, they will be done. And I would say within months.
Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
Okay, so that gave us a little bit of a background on what's happening and how that seat became vacant. I'm a little bit confused in terms of how this process is a reflection of a democratic process in terms of the Prime Minister's ability to just, make this action or take this action. Not just, there's some other things too that in terms of governance, which is one of the things the UIC is standing on, how the government functions. Can you share with the viewers why they should choose the UIC candidate?
Very, very good. I mean, first of all, the Prime Minister has been very disrespectful to the Jamaican people. He's being very arrogant as well, as you can see from his bearing. And he pretty much believes that he's somewhat a monarch or a dictator. that just decides what happened when. He has no regards and respect for due process. So because he's using a colonial constitution, he's exercising the privileges like a governor under a colonial governorship. Now, to be fair, the Constitution does allow him to do this. And that's why the UIC has always said we need to throw out that Constitution and replace it with the one that we have designed, which would prevent this kind of behavior. What you want in a Constitution is very specific laws around elections that removes this kind of, let's say, arrogant flexibility that allows for the Prime Minister to play with the Jamaican people. So a UIC model would say, if you have a vacancy in a seat, you must hold the election within 30 days after certain requirements are met, and you take away that power from any single individual from manipulating. Similarly, the UIC's constitution would say you must have fixed election dates. Right now, the Prime Minister will have us on a waffling position where we don't know when he's going to call it. And we have those kind of games. And it's like, call it, Prime Minister, call it, these kind of foolishness, as opposed to having a very set date. 8 years ago, when he was running for office, he promised the Jamaican people that if they were to elect him within the first 100 days, we would have fixed election date. It is now a whole heap of days. 8 years later, and
Did
we
you
still
say
don't
mixed election days? You
fixed election date.
fixed election days,
Yeah.
right?
So
That's
what you would have is a stat, like in the US, for example,
Right.
every November
That's
after 4 years, you have an election for the presidency, and you have fixed date for the other seats as well.
Okay.
So we don't have that. So why should people elect Chase Neal in Northeast St. Ann? One, it is to tell the Prime Minister that he's not in charge, that he doesn't own us, that he doesn't get to do with us as he pleases. So if you look at what happened, so the Prime Minister decided that, okay, Marsha Smith, it's time for you to go. We have some internal problems in our party, so we're gonna give you something different. And he says it. He says he has a big plan for her. So he orchestrated her resignation. Now, a lot of things are happening here. You have Nigel Clark, who told nurses and teachers that they're to stick it out in Jamaica and suck salt through a wooden spoon and suffer with us, but him get up and runway. So after he has runway now and he's leaving, the Prime Minister has to reshuffle things. So he wants to bring in Samuda now into his cabinet on a different level. He's there now through the Senate, but there are certain positions you can't be coming from the Senate and hold those positions. You need to be an elected MP. So what they do, and this is what I've been talking about for years, the Senate was used to profile Mr. Samuda, to make him face palatable to us, to give him a presence. Now, that's a bad purpose of a Senate. A Senate should be a properly constituted, elected office that allows, for our laws to be vetted properly. But instead, our Senate is appointed by the Prime Minister and by the opposition leader. And so because
it's not an elected, they're not,
No.
these are not elected. This is what elected positions the Prime Minister appoints.
Yes. So we have 21 members in the Senate. The Prime Minister appoints 13. Anybody he wants. He can appoint anybody. They could be as dunce as a duck, or it doesn't matter. He's able to appoint 13 persons, whomever he wishes, like a king, monarch. And the opposition leader is allowed to appoint 8. These become lackeys, rubber stampers. They're not independent thinkers. They will never defend the people of Jamaica. Both of these sets of senators will defend their party, and most importantly, they'll defend their party leaders who appointed them. It's a very bad system. That is why the UIC has called for an elected Senate, where your senators are elected, one per parish, so that no matter what laws you pass in the lower house, when it comes to the Senate now, you'll have proper oversight. St. Thomas will look at the bill and say, how this affects St. Thomas? Portland, how does this affect Portland? So you'd have proper oversight. So we don't have that right now. So what the Prime Minister is doing, he first of all profiled Matthew Samuda in the Senate to get people used to him face and him name. Then he now finds a safe seat for him, so to speak. He just tells Marsha, you resign now. Marsha is supposed to be there now to represent the people of Northeast St. Ann. but instead she really represents the prime minister and his party. And so when they have no further use for her now, they have plans, he just said resign, and she resigns, and then he comes out the next day in his arrogant self and announces a by-election, just so. Now, on the other hand, if you go over to South Trelawney, that wasn't a resignation on his behalf. It was because the MP over there was found to be connected with some illegal activities, and her name was not looking so well in the press anymore. And she was forced by her legal problems to resign. Forced to resign, not by the prime minister wanting her to resign. So she resigned. And the prime minister now decides to punish the people of South Trelawney by not calling a by-election for 1 year.
So they have no representation.
They have no representative, so to speak. But let's also be careful about how we use the word representative.
Right.
Under the current system of Jamaica's governance, the people actually don't have any representatives in parliament.
Right.
Every MP really represents the party. They only use the people to be authenticated so they can then borrow money in our name and rip us off. But if you think about it, all the MPs represent their party. Now the party represents the PSOJ oligarchs. And if we understand it carefully, the party represents the people who fund it. Who funds the two-party? The PSOJ oligarchs, the richest companies in Jamaica, whether they're locally owned or foreign owned, they control our government by virtue of giving them the money that they use to send the buses around, buy the t-shirts, buy the caps, buy the media presence, and so on. And these same PSOJ oligarchs also owns the media houses. So they decide how much attention, how much visibility will be given to, say, people like the UIC and our candidates. So back to your main point, South Trelawney has been without a fake representative for the last year, while Northeast St. Anne just lost one of its fake representatives on the Prime Minister's wishes, and he wants to put another fake representative in. So the UIC is here now to give the people real representative, because we know we're not owned by the PSOJ oligarchs.
So
because we have decided,
So then tell us then, what would that look like differently in terms of now the people are all, the UIC are the People's Party. So how now will the UIC represent the people differently than it currently is happening?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it carefully. When right now you will never hear an MP gets up in the House of Parliament and seriously speak to the issues of their constituency. Okay? What they talk about is from a partisan standpoint. So, for example,
how would they know that though? How would they know of an issue in a constituency? That's the first step to be able
because you are the MP.
What's it supposed to look like?
If you're the MP for a constituency, it means that you're being paid by taxpayers to know.
Okay. So if I have, for example, a complaint, I need a stoplight in my community, then I'll call my MP and, hey, Mr. MP, we have this stoplight issue or whatever issue, and then he takes that to Parliament.
Okay, so your first question to me was how the MP knows. So the MP, when you're elected as an MP, you're being paid by taxpayers by virtue of your salary to know. So your job is to move around the constituency and know what's going on, so that when you go to Parliament, when you go to a subcommittee in Parliament, when you are to speak to the press, you can speak on behalf of the people because you're familiar with their challenges. And you're now going to be a part of the legislative process and a part of the accountability process to ensure that the executive branch of government is carrying out its task properly. So your constituents can write to you, they can call you, they can email you to say, we have an issue here or a problem here. Now, the problem all constituents have in Jamaica is that, generally speaking, their MPs no business with them until election time. Because, and every election, they're stuck at the basics, water and road and light. So we've been stuck at that basics now for 80 years, while other countries have moved on. We're still stuck. You hardly ever hear any major outcry about education, yet still our students are failing dismally. So, but you don't hear parents marching. You've never seen the road block yet because our students are failing in school. Why? because they have dumbed down the nation. They have kept us almost no better than we were back in slavery when we're not allowed to read and to write. Right now, most Jamaicans are not engaged intellectually in the business of governance. What they care about is the basics. My road now work, my road mash up, and if I'm driving, it's mashing up my shocks. If I'm a taxi driver, not going there.
But if you think about the basics, and the reason it's there is because when you have a need, for example, the more basic the need, and just a few days ago, I was engaging in one activity, and because there's an immediate need, there's a storm coming, I had to shift focus and focus on that immediate need. So if our basic needs were kept there, food, shelter, if that is all people are
absolutely,
it keeps them in that space of always in need.
And the question is, who has kept them in that space? You see, if Jamaica, we're unfortunately blessed with misleaders, people who lead us astray. In countries where you have true leaders, like my good friend Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, where he was a true leader. So he takes the people from their crude position, meaning they're living on the margins, their basic needs have not been met. Singapore 1960s, 1950s. Okay, that's where he found them. And then now, because he's a great leader, he moves them up the ladder to the point where now the basics are no longer the issues in their politics, right? So let me show you how far they have come. So back in the 1960s, Jamaicans and Singaporeans were on the same productive level, meaning gross domestic product, GDP per person, per capita they call it. So the Singaporeans were producing the same level of production as Jamaicans in the 1960s. Okay, today Singaporeans are producing more than 100 times what we're producing per person. Why? Because their leaders invested in some basic things. First of all, a very high quality education system. That meant the average child in Singapore will know how to read with understanding, reason from cause to effect, apply their academic skills to practical solutions, and can really engage in high-level dialogue. In Jamaica, we can't engage in high-level dialogue. We're still stuck at the basics. We're still cussing each other every day for two parties. I mean, cussing in the most unbelievably dunce way. I don't know what else to call it. I mean, you just hear them every day on Facebook calling each other all kinds of derogatory names, and just so pathetic and so primitive and so juvenile. That's where we still are. You could have heard that kind of discussion in the 1950s, in the 1960s, in the 1970s, in the 1980s, and they've carried that all the way through to the 21st century. We're still stuck there. That is why we have to elect the UIC. That's why we have to elect Mr. Chase in Northeast.
And you made a very good point where you talked about the focus that Singapore had on education, and Jamaica's education system has failed its students. That news is out, and it's as though people are moving on. Mr. Chase has a position of education. He has a education, I don't know if that the title minister or consultant for the UIC. How does that play into his role as a representative for St. Anne?
Well, in the current model of governance that we have in Jamaica, your MPs may serve and will be called upon to serve as ministers of government, which is really foolish. So in the current system, and the UIC, we don't exist in a vacuum, right? So while we want to take Jamaica way up, we have to work within the context of what also exists. Right. So your MP candidates, you have to look at each of them in the context of which ministerial role they would occupy in a UIC government. So Mr. Chase Neal, who has a background in teaching and who is a teacher in his own right, is our education spokesperson and the person who we would likely turn to as an education minister should we be elected. Now, so if he's elected, if let's say the UIC wins an election and we have 30, 40 MPs in the House, and let's say I was the Prime Minister, under the current system of governance, I would have to draw on the ministers I have to appoint them to different ministerial portfolios. So he might be
whether they're
appointed,
qualified or not for that house.
whether they're qualified or not, because that is the law, right? That is the current constitution. The constitution doesn't require you to pick somebody who is competent or capable in any of the role. What it requires is that you pick one of the politicians that have been elected to fit the role. So you're limited by the constitution to do that. Now, the UIC wants to throw out that constitution because it makes no sense at all. It's a disruptive and destructive constitution. So a UIC constitution would see us having what we call subject matter experts being appointed to each of the different ministries. You would not be an MP because that's a conflict of interest. You can't have the MP also being in the executive branch. The MP's job is to represent the constituents and to challenge the executive and to hold the executive accountable. The executive job is to bring forward and propose policies, and if they're approved by the legislator, implement those policies and be held accountable by the legislature for that. So the UIC is going to separate those two. You call it separation of powers. And what we're going to have now is the executive branch, which is an elected president, vice presidents, now nominating quality persons who are capable. So for example, your education minister would be somebody who has a very serious background in education, who's not coming just with an idea. They're coming with knowledge and experience.
Yes.
And so now when we nominate that person, the Senate can vet them publicly. All of us can watch on TV or go to the gallery and watch and see whether or not the person in question fits the bill. And then they would be elected by the House of Representatives to serve as a minister. Now, the beautiful thing about this is anybody that's so elected, anybody that is elected through that methodology cannot be removed willy-nilly by the president. The president would have to make a request, and that request would be reviewed by the Senate, and then the House would have to vote. So that gives your ministers a certain amount of independence, so they don't have to toe the line and just follow exactly what the president says, like a dictatorship, like we have now. Right now, all the ministers are at the mercy of the prime minister because he can dismiss them and hire them at will. Very bad system. Welcome, Mr. Neal.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
for
sir.
that. And yes, Mr. Chase Neal is able to join us this evening. Thank you so much, Chase. I'm glad that you're able to make it on.
I'm glad also.
Given us some background on this whole process, but I wanted to give people an opportunity to meet you and to hear about who you are and just a little bit of background on you. So can you, first of all, tell us, give a little bit of background where you come from? From where do you hail originally?
All right. Thank you, VP Francis. Thank you for the caption, Sir Patterson. I forgot to put it there. All right, so I am from St. Mary, from a little district called Geddestown. I was born in Kingston, lived a few months in Kingston, and since then I've spent the majority of my life in St. Mary, in Geddestown, St. Mary. Yeah, so that's where I hail.
From St. Mary. Okay. All right. So what is it that you do in terms of as your career of choice? I heard we get a little bit that you're doing some teaching, and whenever I hear teach, I get a little excited.
Yes.
So tell me, what kind of teaching background you have?
Well, I used to teach in the public school system. I taught for 12 years.
What
primarily
subject?
in the high school system, English language and literature. Yes. Yeah, so I taught for the most part at high school. I did do around 3 years at primary school level, but I left the education system for two.
Why?
That's the public education system for two reasons.
That's a particular question right now because so many teachers, there's such great need. So why did you leave the education field?
It wasn't for financial reasons because I was one of those who did it for the joy of it. Maybe we're mad, but it was two main reasons. It was a numbers game. Our children are not taught to think; they are taught to memorize and to pass, to get good grades. It's numbers, and the disciplinary methods are not, in my experience, are not catered to the development of the children. It's more shaming them instead of trying to emulate for them and shaping them into persons who can make decisions that are best for their development. And I thought I was hampered in that avenue. So but because of the need for money, although I wanted to go, I didn't really go until I was forced because of illness. I contracted a disease in 2015 that forced me to leave the classroom, and I was relieved. It was the best thing. Not so much the symptoms, but I have never regretted leaving, and now I teach online because, yes, I teach online. I am more
Wait,
able
I just want to pause there, just a moment, because you said that you felt relieved leaving the classroom because of the restriction. Not only you felt as a teacher to apply actual methodologies that were effective with your students. Why was that such a limitation? I mean, were there trainings involved? What was going on with?
All right.
With education that.
All right. So we are taught a number of methodologies in Teachers College. I should be ashamed now because I'm remembering the name of my favorite one that I used for so many years. Maybe they'll come to me. It's involved getting the students immersed in real life simulations. So they're using the language and not being taught the rules so much. Of course, that comes after, but it is more practical. No, this can get messy because no, instead of having seats in a row and everybody like that, no, they're emulating real life situations.
Yes.
The school admin don't like those. But the thing is, my students consistently got good grades to the point where the HOD had to grade my papers herself because she was saying that these students can't get these grades, but when they graded it, they got the same grades that I was getting, but they could. And I don't know why we trapped in this thing that the children must be this way, that way.
Yeah. It's not effective at all, and not only are we losing students, we're losing good teachers like you, who cannot function in those arenas. But happy that you're at least in now public service. You're now available to the constituents in St. Anne. And that is an exciting new turnaround that has resulted in, congratulations on that. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means now? What does that mean that you are now a candidate for the Northeast, the St. Anne?
Northeast St. Anne? From my point of view, it means many things. It means that the constituents now have a chance to really have a say. What obtains now when one votes for the two colonial parties now, they are actually voting for a system put in place by the owners of the system who do not have our best interests at heart. These private interests and colonial interests, they are interested in reaping our human resources, our natural resources, or financial resources. And we, the people, participate in our own bondage. Now, the UIC is the people's movement. If the people don't support us, we will reach nowhere. Nowhere at all. If the people don't support the other two colonial parties, they will still form government. And that is the thing. No, what the constituents have now is a chance to finally make their voice known, and it's really their voice, and not the voice of the So that is one thing that it means for me.
It's really their voice now. Go ahead.
Yes, and so we will reach so far as they will donate, as they will volunteer, as they will support, not just vote. Not in the present system, all they need to do is turn up and make noise and collect money and vote. No, the people will have to put in real work if they want their voice heard. And since it is the people's movement, the people have the power to determine how things go. So that is one of the things that is significant to me right now. Another thing is that despite the suddenness of this and the government trying, I use this phrase twice today, political gymnastics, still the people have chosen to nominate something that represents being fed up with the corruption in the system, and the fact that we will not allow you as the government to do this unanswered. So the people have made a choice and they've made their voice known, and I think that is important.
Beautiful, thank you. One of the things that I hear people when they talk about what the term is politicians, they may see you as another politician. How will you? I know, because you're actually a candidate. You're not a politician. How can you distinguish, or how will you distinguish yourself differently from the other candidates? How will people know that you're not just another politician?
All right, let me just answer realistically. No matter what I say, the people just going to have to give me a chance, because I can say all the beautiful things about myself, but all politicians do that. No, people just have to look at performance and think logically, engage the logical part of their brains now. What has 80 years of JLP and PNP brought you? When I look at some of the roads in Southeast, as you were, Northeast and I wonder why these people vote. And then I heard that many places don't have water and so forth. Then why you voting?
So where would you say the breakdown? Where would the breakdown in the process? Because whenever we hear about Jamaica, we always hear about bad roads. What is the process supposed to look like so that the roads can be fixed? And if they have bad roads in a particular constituency, and how will they be able to let you know? And then what will you do with that information to get the roads fixed? There seems to be that disconnect.
Can I jump in here?
Sure.
Just a little bit. When Mr. Neal is elected as the next MP for Northeast St. Ann, he is not going to be able to fix the roads because that would be based on allocation from central government, from the sitting government. What he's going to be able to do, though, he's going to have the vested interest of being able to speak out on the issues in a way that Mati Samuda will not be able to do. Mati Samuda will be representing the JLP government and will therefore have to hide the reality of his constituents to not make his party look bad. And let's say there was a PNP MP. The PNP MP, if they were in opposition, the people would just say, yeah, because you're in opposition, why you said this? Because when only the day in power, nothing did change. So Mr. Neal is going to have the unique position of representing the people and not representing one of the two colonial parties that really has no credibility when it comes down to fixing the problems he's talking about. He's going to be able to also put pressure now on the government as a skillful MP, pressure them by pointing out what is going on and giving voice to it in a way that the other representatives would not have done. Your thoughts, Mr. Neal?
That is precisely so. The representatives from the colonial parties must behave they must behave if they want to retain their seat and position, because the funders and owners of the system control how they respond to certain things, and they can't go outside of that. Now, the UIC is not hindered by that, and we come with the people-centric focus. So we will be able to speak out on issues that the others cannot safely go all out on.
But let's talk about reality now, Mr. Neil. Oh, somebody's having a echo. Here's the serious thing. When it comes down to the election on the 30th of September, how will people vote? Because so far the history has been that, you know, the people, there are two sets of people in Jamaica, those who vote and those who don't. In the last election, the last local government election, 29% of the population that could vote voted. 71% did not vote, even though you had UIC candidates and other independent candidates. 70% did not vote. In the general election prior to the local government election, only 37% voted, 63% did not vote. So come September 30th, what will change? How are we going to cause those who do not vote and are not likely to vote, what are we going to do to get them to vote? And the die-hearted ones now who continue to give credence to and credibility to and legitimacy to these two parties that have failed them and us. How are we going to convince that small, this is serious because a minority is voting for these two parties, not a majority. The majority is not voting for them, but the majority is also not voting for anybody. So how do we get through to them? And I don't expect you to have a foolproof scientific answer, because I know the limitations, but I want you to use this opportunity to kind of explain to our listeners and viewers what's going on and what is the uphill battle that we're going to have to climb to get some of those persons to do what is in their best interest by voting for you and for other UIC candidates in the future elections.
All right. The reality is that the disillusioned, or the let me not use that word because it would be incorrect. Those who are uninterested, who have disconnected from the electoral process, they have been disappointed by over 80 years of stagnation and tribalism and failure to deliver on promises.
We know that, but what is the answer? What are you proposing we do?
The answer?
I'm being a journalist here, right? I'm being a journalist here tonight.
Yes,
I'm going to pressure you a little bit. So go ahead.
Well, in my experience, when people are presented with the facts of what is going on and they realize their eyes are opened, then they are prepared to make a change. So what the hurdle that we actually need to overcome is getting to the people. We will, I don't know how much of a change we would make in those who are disconnected from the electoral process, but I do know based on experience that we will make some change, but we need to get to them. The fact is that the resources, the financial resources is a problem. No, we don't, or a challenge rather. We don't have the backing that the others have, the big corporate backing. So the people who are the foundation and the driving force behind the UIC, if they're not engaged, then I don't know how we're going to reach them. The media, it plays around with the UIC. They know about us, but they block us. So if we can,
if you would give me, if I can have a stab at that as well, because I think I hear you hinting at it, Chase, in terms of how we reach people, and I think that that's more or less what the UIC is doing right now, where it's actually giving people the opportunity to be a part of the democratic process, where your involvement is what makes it a democratic process. It's not just voting, and then after you vote, you go back to your life. It's really engaging. And I don't think people in Jamaica are, not just Jamaica, but I don't think a lot of people are, even in the US, are not accustomed to being a part of that process. So when I asked you, how will that be different? It's being able, giving people an opportunity to have a voice, for you to listen to them. One of the things I can't, and I've been trying to do here, is engage with my MP or any councilman. And you can't get a phone call returned, an email returned, or any of that. So it's very difficult to communicate whatever concerns you have in the community. That's the difference with the UIC and with the true democracy. A true democracy is your involvement, the involvement of the people, regular people like you and me and Mr. Patterson, who are not politicians. We're just regular people that are saying, you know what, we need something better for our people, and we're going to step out and do what we can.
Well, let's get a bit germane again, because I want our viewers to really understand. I think we're still skirting around the issue a bit. The bottom line is this: you're not going to get elected. None of us, nobody's running for office in the current environment gets elected unless you can communicate effectively. And I'm not talking about having the skills of oratory. I'm talking about being able to get to the ears and eyes of the people. Where are the ears and eyes of the people in Jamaica? What are they looking at? What are they watching? What are they reading? If they're watching the news, TVJ, CVM, reading the Gleaner or the Observer, they're not seeing the UIC, because those platforms do not carry the UIC. So if the Jamaican people are to be reached by traditional media, I'm not going to say, because we're not there. Not because we don't want to be there, but because those who own those platforms are the same people who own the other colonial parties and don't want us to be seen. So that's a given. So we have to say, now, what do we do? Now, I have a very simple solution. It's a very, very simple solution. In the last election, the last general election, the two major parties, just for the election cycle alone, received about $350 million from the PSOJ oligarchs to buy votes. When a party gets money, what do they do with it? They buy advertisement, they buy T-shirts, caps, food, transportation, communication. They reach the people. You see ministers being able to jump in jeeps and drive into the most difficult of places. See prime ministers roll up them pants and walk through a river. You see MPs sitting down in a yard with people with them Dutch pot and I eat food out of it. Only at election time, of course. So you're seeing all of that. Where does the money come from for that to happen? It comes from those who understand the importance of owning government. So the PSOJ oligarchs, they know how important it is for them to own the party and own the government. We, the people now, they train us to simply go to vote. So they have tricked us. We just go vote. We go and dip our ink in our finger in the ink, and we go and mark our X, and we say, "Yeah, we have done our civic duty and we have exercised our franchise." All of that is foolishness, because those who control the nominees are the ones who really have the power, not those who go and vote for the nominees placed in front of them. So the Jamaican people will see two nominees normally. They'll see a green nominee and an orange nominee, courtesy of the PSOJ oligarchs. So we now have to have a strategy, and our strategy is very simple. Why don't we convince the Jamaican people that one coca does fill the basket? So if we have 1,000 Jamaicans, for example, giving $250 a week or $1,000 a month, 1,000 Jamaicans, that would be how much per month? $1 million. If you double that, it's 2 million. If you double that, it's 3 million. So, and that's only a fraction of Jamaicans. 1,000 Jamaicans, 2,000 Jamaicans, 3,000 out of a population of 3 million. When you're tossing now the 4 million in the diaspora, because the diaspora want Jamaica to be better. Everybody in the diaspora, except for a few mentally deranged persons, everybody in the diaspora wants Jamaica to be safe. Everybody in the diaspora wants Jamaica to be clean. They all want Jamaica to be orderly. They all want a good healthcare system in Jamaica. They all want good roads in Jamaica. So if we're able to reach the people and let them understand the value of membership in the UIC, the value of taking out a membership and giving a small amount every month. You're in the diaspora, you're giving $250 US a week or $10 US for the month, just $10. And in Jamaica, you give $1,000 for the month. That adds up and can surpass the PSOJ. And if we surpass the 350 million from the PSOJ, for example, and we now can buy transportation, buy communication, buy posters, buy t-shirts, buy caps, buy food, buy entertainment, then we're set. And now here's the beauty of it. While the other two parties have to answer to their PSOJ bosses, we answer to the Jamaican people. And so we know, so the only way we can remain in power is if we meet the needs of the Jamaican people. So we have to say, listen, when you invest in the UIC, when you give your $1,000 per month, I know you feel you're suffering right now, even though you might still go to a cartel event. We know you're suffering right now, and you really wish that there was an immediate solution right now. There's no immediate solution. You have to join the party, become a member, believe again. Have the spirit of belief again in you, that we can make a difference. And you join the party now. And now you become a volunteer as well. A volunteer is simply, you just spread the word. You just go and tell your neighbor, your family members, your friends, your co-worker, come join the party, man. Join the UIC. I feel a part of this. Them two there belong to the PSOJ. Them two there belong to the colonial masters. When another pandemic come, them going to come joke you. But the UIC will protect you. They will sell you out to the IMF. But the UIC is going to invest in our children and in our housing. So come, man, make we join the party. And if you can convince 1,000 Jamaicans to start paying their dues, 5,000 to start paying their dues, then now every election that comes, we, the UIC, the People's Party, will have the resources to effectively communicate, because without effective communication, you can't win nothing. It's that simple.
Very well said. Good. So this is the beginning of that. So Chase, the actual date for people to come out and vote is September 30th. And Mr. Patterson, what can people do? What's the best way they can support the nominee for UIC now?
We can win as short as the time is, right? Yes. Believe me, money talks. I'm being very plain with you, my people. Money talks. Right now, if we can pay Mr. Neal's salary, I'm being very straight with you right now. Right now, Mr. Neal has to get up every day and go to work. Mattis Amuda can get up every day and go campaign. Andrew Oldest can get up every day and go campaign. Mark Golden can get up every day and go campaign. So we need to stop being so fool about politics and want our independent candidates to magically match what they can match. Mr. Neal can't match Mattis Amuda right now, because tomorrow morning he better get up and go to work. And it's only after him finish working him 9 to 5 plus whatever, him going to try squeeze in some time. Where the money come from to pay for him gas and transportation to go from him yard to whichever community? Who will pay for the transportation cost for Mr. Neal? Who will pay for the phone cost for him to communicate? Who will pay for the data? Who will pay for the handbills and pamphlets and posters? So let's get real, my fellow Jamaicans. If we want good, we know how to run. If we want Mr. Chase to win, we have to dip in our pocket and contribute so that he's able to go and do the work and stop praying for a miracle. Them fool us with religion, You know what they do to us with religion, Miss Francis and Mr. Neal? Them get us to believe in the sweet by and by, that in some beautiful day on that beautiful shore, we'll meet and everything will be okay. No. God has given you a brain to think now and make changes now and improve your life now.
Yes.
So what we're saying is, while there might be a Messiah coming in the future, let us be our own Messiah today. Let us make sure we organize, pool our resources, our time, our talent, and our treasure. Give Mr. Neil some of our time, some of our talent, and some of our treasure. And through that now, he will be able to reach the people. We will help him to reach the people. We will echo his voice across all of Northeast St. Ann and all of Jamaica. And all Jamaicans, no matter where you're, if you're in Montego Bay or you're in Portland, this election is important to you because this is your country. And if we can break through in Northeast St. Ann, we can break through in Portland, we can break through in St. Thomas, we can break through in St. James, all across Jamaica. So let us all band together now and invest in this election and win Northeast St. Ann on September 30th. But we have to pay for it. So send in your donations tonight, tomorrow, to uicjamaica.com and put on the line Chase Neil or Chase, so that your donation goes to his campaign. You can always donate to everything else for the UIC. But right now, the mission is, let's give Matthew Samuda and Andrew Holness and the JLP a run for their money.
True. Thank you. That's great. But that's very inspiring and very empowering. Thank you so much for investing your time and energy for all these years, Mr. Patterson, to make sure that we're actually here at this moment where we can actually, the people of Jamaica have a choice, someone who can advocate for them in their name. And before we wrap it up, Chase, I wanted to give you an opportunity to say a few final words and get the support rally the support of the folks from St. Ann behind you.
All right, thank you. Well, I think what needs to be said has been said, but I'll just echo it. The only way we win this, and when I say we, I mean we as Jamaicans, because what we're doing is running for you, the people. The only way we will win this is if we all put in the effort, if we all get on board with volunteering, with spreading the message, with donating. Because as you just heard, money talk. If the money not there, it's not going to work. We cannot depend on the PSOJ to give the UIC the boost to win, because that is not in their best interest, and that is not in your best interest, and they don't care about your best interest. If we want a Northeast St. Ann that brings out the best in every single person who lives there, not just who might vote a certain way, then we have to bring in the UIC policies. We have to bring in the UIC message. And that can only be done if we work together to get it done. We must work. We're not asking you to just sit and take money and just dip your finger in ink. Nothing goes up. If we want independence, we have to do the sacrifice. It's not an extreme sacrifice like Paul Bogle and Sam Sharp, who had to give their lives, but they had to do something for us to be here sitting down instead of across our backs. No, we ourselves must put in the sacrifice to get the word out, to band people together so that the people can win the election. The people, through our own efforts, will win the election, and we don't need to depend on dirty money, not money in general, but the money that's used now in campaigning is really dirty money. It's oppressing the people. So we will no longer feed into our slavery. We will no longer feed into our poverty, which is a political symptom. But we, the people, will work to liberate ourselves. We must work. We must put in the work. We must donate. We must give the time necessary so that we will win this. Once and for all, the people will actually win. All right. So those are my feelings.
Well said. Well said. Well said. I love that spin on it, the engagement of the people and making sure that they realize that it is their efforts that will move the party forward, that will get the independence that we have been clamoring that we have. It comes from their actions. And so before we go, again, any final words, Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, man, let's all get together and feel all right. Most importantly, go to the website tonight, uicjamaica.com, and donate. Tell all your friends and family we're going to elect Mr. Chase Neal in Northeast St. Dan. Let's mash up that lie that they have about the only two of them can win. We can do it too. All the best. One Jamaica, we're stronger together.
One Jamaica, stronger together. Thank you so much. Thanks again, gentlemen. Have a great evening. Thanks for the viewers for coming on. Take care now.